Podcast. My name's Eric, and this is Randy.
Hello.
Welcome to this amazing tech podcast. We got some cool topics today. Blizzard pushing back some of their games, getting delayed, maybe to 2023. We want to talk about Intel Alder Lake CPUs on, there's some benchmarks and stuff out. And we also want to talk about the M1 MacBook Pros, the M1 Max MacBook Pro that I have in front of me. So, first thing, dude, let's get the low-hanging fruit out of the way, Randy.
Yeah,
you were just telling me about...
I think we can talk. Yeah, so let's save the best for last.
Saving the best for last, dude. Let's talk about Blizzard. So, Blizzard's been kind of having a lot of controversy lately. Would you agree?
I would.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like there's a lot of dissension amongst the ranks for obvious reasons. I'm pretty sure a lot of our listeners probably already know what's going on with the over there at Blizzard Entertainment. But just the other day, they came out with some breaking news that Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 may get delayed. Well, they are delayed, but they may be 2023 games. So, we don't even know if they will be 2023 or 2024. It's not looking good. There's been a few speculations that Diablo 4 is a definite, but Overwatch 2 may end up on the chopping block. I know that Overwatch in general has had some pretty glaring issues and bugs with it lately, and the community who plays Overwatch still, because I still subscribe to Overwatch on Reddit, they're just begging for a patch to fix what's broken, and they haven't gotten a patch in years.
Dang.
Not years, obviously, but a long
time. That's nutty, dude. So yeah, you sent me an article here. I'll just pull it up. This is from Polygon. They basically were saying, maybe delayed till 2023. And I know personally, I'm kind of sad because that Diablo 2 trailer was kind of hype. It looked really cool. Diablo 4. Yeah, Diablo 4 looked really cool. And I really want it. I liked Diablo 3, especially after a bunch of patches and then the DLC.
Yeah.
I like the expansion.
So I love Diablo 3. I think where I'm at is I may be in the minority. I get that people didn't like Diablo Immortal because it's a mobile game and people wanted a new Diablo PC game.
Right.
But I think a mobile, a AAA Blizzard backed mobile Diablo would be really cool on the phones, the tablets,
Yeah.
So I was kind of looking forward to it, but also, wanting that desktop experience. But if you think back to when Red Shirt Guy or whatever it was, no, not the guy who said this is this an out of season April Fool's joke?
I remember him so well.
That was a while ago, right, man?
It was a while. Yeah, I
mean, it seems it's really concerning to me how long it's even taking them to release this mobile game. So, what does that mean for games like Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4?
I don't know. I haven't kept track of the mobile game because it's not really my market. But it looked like it was going to be neat. So. I'm not. I don't think most people were against the fact that they were making it. I think people just want them to work on PC titles, right?
Right.
So it's if this is taking the place of my beloved PC Diablo, I'm angry now. So
right.
That was the whole
thing. It obviously
isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not. Right. Diablo 4 is looking like it's gonna be cool, but we'll see.
Who knows? When
it might be bad,
out,
dude. Blizzard's been kind of fucking up, dude.
You know what kind of bothers me about this, and this is probably going to affect you as well.
Yeah.
If you already have a cut down dev team, I feel like your chances of developing a client for x86 and ARM also diminish, right? So we've already seen with, I think, Warcraft 3 Reforged and Overwatch that we just didn't get an macOS client at all. However, we did get World of Warcraft to be one of the first native M1 games.
Right.
I think it really comes down to what the install base is, right? So the more people that play WoW on M1, they're probably tracking those numbers and saying, was this juice worth the squeeze? And I'm kind of hoping that they think it is.
I hope so, because
it's kind of clear. It's kind of clear right now that unless you need a Windows laptop for a specific task,
gaming,
it's really hard to not just buy a MacBook, right? But
especially in the laptop department, yeah.
Right. I guess to stay on task, I really hope that this delaying of games doesn't diminish our 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 chances of getting a native ARM client for
I
the
hope
new
so.
Blizzard games.
I know Diablo 3 had support, at least not in the ARM department, but they had a Mac client at one point. I
They
don't know if
did.
they still do.
They still do. They still do.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then I know that was a big disappointment with me with Diablo 2 Remaster was they didn't have a Mac client, and I was
Yeah.
upset about that. But it's not stopping people. When it comes to gaming on a Mac, people are still finding ways to do it. A lot of people are either using crossover, which is like a kind of
In
using
parallels. Yeah.
in parallels, installing Windows 10 or 11 ARM versions, and they're able to play games. Like I've seen people play Overwatch, and the experience has been improved versus like the 13-inch M1. If you have an M1 Pro or M1 Max machine, it is much improved, but it's still kind of stuttery. You get like micro stutters and
On what?
and glitches with parallels and gaming, like
Yeah,
Overwatch
and then like
specifically.
you also have to realize then that you're running in a VM. You're
Yes.
converting Windows BSD to Mac OS, and then you're converting Mac OS to ARM with Rosetta 2. So like, there's a lot of software layers that
Yeah.
is just sapping
Well,
your performance.
see, you got
So,
that wrong a little bit.
did I?
So, yeah, so the weird thing about it is it's not using Rosetta 2. That's the negative. It's using the ARM version of Windows, and then it's using the
Oh,
same translation that like the Surface, what is it, the Surface Pro X or whatever the hell it's called,
hmm.
the same translation layer that uses, which is way shittier than what Rosetta 2
So
is.
does Parallels use that too?
Parallels doesn't need to, right? Because
Why?
it's running the ARM version of Windows.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'm asking like, oh, oh,
You're using
oh.
the ARM
Okay,
version of Windows.
okay.
The what's happening is Windows is doing the doing the x86 to ARM translation using its like crappier translation.
Oh,
It's actually not even
well,
a
that's
translation. It's a emulator basically,
well, that's worse than
which
expected.
is way worse. This is
That's worse than
why
expected.
if they used Rosetta 2 in some fashion, then you would see probably a pretty decent performance, but it doesn't.
Right.
From what this is how I understand it. It's using the same translation or emulation that the Windows ARM products are using, which is bad.
Oh, well, that's even worse than I expected.
Yeah. But people are still getting decent performance regardless. It's just not good. The best thing
It
to
could be
do
better. That could be
is,
better.
yeah, people using, if you use crossover or whatever it's called, which is like kind of using like the wine translation,
Yeah.
that will use Rosetta as far as I know, and then it's much better. People are playing like GTA 5 and stuff like that successfully using stuff like that, and it's pretty cool, but still kind of jank. It's kind of funny. You can game on a Mac and you can play Windows games if you brute force it, with mixed results. So
Sure. Sure. Well, that's interesting, man. That's a good that's a
yeah.
good learning experience for me. I mean, it's good to know, but it's also making it worse, right?
Well,
So
it's rough. It's like if you want a game on a Mac computer, you absolutely can. Like I want to, right? Like I have this amazing machine, and we're kind of like skipping ahead a little bit cuz I want to talk about this when we talk about
I
the
know,
Mac
man. I
discussion.
know. We're
But
almost there. We're almost there. We
we'll,
have
we'll
one
get
topic in
there.
between.
But like it's gonna if let's just summarize though real quick though, it will be good. It's just sometimes it's amazing. Let's just say that. And we'll get more into that in a minute, but if we're done talking about Blizzard, let's talk about Intel.
Yeah, let's do it.
So
I'm
today,
kind of first hearing this info for the first time. I
right.
had a pretty busy day at work, so yeah, fill us in,
Yeah, so
including
check
me.
this out. So today at some point, actually Linus accidentally leaked his video early. So Linus Tech Tips, Linus Media Group, they accidentally leaked their video early, then took it
Oh,
down, but it was too late. The internet had it and posted all these screenshots of all their benchmarks, everything like that. They eventually did publish their video today, which I watched, and I also looked at some other media outlets, and I think the consensus is this is actually really great. Like Intel's done a great job, and they actually have a competing product now. AMD Ryzen chips aren't the king anymore. Intel's actually leapfrogged them. So we have
wow.
a couple products from them Their new i9, i7, and i5, they're all using the 10 nanometer process. They call it the Intel 7 process. The exciting
Intel
thing about
7?
it, yeah, Intel 7 is what they're calling it.
Why not Intel 10?
Yeah, I don't know. It used to be before they rebranded Intel 7. So it's probably some sort of marketing thing for them to try and trick people to be like, oh, we're 7 nanometer, but it's really a 10 nanometer process. And the trick is they're basically trying to improve thermals and stuff, but also allow these chips to boost. They're basically
What kind of base and boost clock speeds are we talking about here?
so I don't know the clocks in front of me, but let me tell you what's interesting is they're doing like a kind of a big little thing where you have performance cores and efficiency cores, which is
I feel like some other company did that and it worked out really well for them.
yeah. I wonder who that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just like Apple, they're going the performance and efficiency core route. Their i9, which is the 12900K, has 8 performance cores, 8 efficiency cores, up to 24 threads. Okay.
So weird, up to 24 threads. So
Yeah,
that
so it
means
has
16,
24 threads, yeah.
So that means only the performance cores can do hyperthreading, right?
Is that the math on it? Yeah, I guess
because
so.
16 plus 8 would be 24.
Yeah, good point. Interesting. Yeah, so you did the math. You did the math.
Dude,
So
I brained it. I brained it
yeah.
out, dude.
So the i9 has 8 and 8, the i7 has 8 and 4, and then the i5 has 6 and 4. So it's a pretty interesting setup. And here's what I'm seeing out of it.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And you may not know the answer to this, but I'm kind of curious. Can you use all 24 threads on a single process?
Yes, I think so. So there's been some.
So like if you run R23, would you get 24 boxes or would you only use the high efficiency? And get
I think you would use all 24 boxes, yeah. The real question is whether or not the Windows scheduler is smart enough to allocate the cores correctly. And I think the case is it is, but I haven't done enough research on it. But that's the real question, right? Like that's been the negative with on Windows 10. Like if you were to boost individual cores, the machine doesn't necessarily know to use those cores for what you want it to use those for. Maybe specifically a game, like you might have boosted like 2 of your however many cores to like the highest, whatever.
Right.
That way you're not like completely overheating, your shit. But like here's what we're seeing about these new chips. They're beating the 5950X, like specifically the i9 and sometimes the i5. They're beating the 5950X even in multi-core, which is interesting. Like you kind of expected them to beat the single core, right? Like they've historically been able to eke it out on gaming and single core performance. But even in multi-core, go ahead.
Ever since I've built my machine, I kind of regret just not going Intel.
Yeah, I know what you mean, dude. It's kind
I
of
feel
a
like there's just
thing.
like a culmination of like little things that I don't like about AMD. And like I don't know if it's Windows or if it's how Zen does things, but like I feel like the process scheduler is just worse. Like
well, we do know that Windows 11 and Ryzen don't mix as well as they should right now.
Right.
We have like a performance issue right now, and I don't know if they fixed it yet.
I just feel like the process scheduler is infinitely worse on AMD. And, I kind of also just miss overclocking a little bit. Kind of.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like with my chip, I don't overclock anymore. I kind of just tell it to auto boost, and it does better than I could, which is interesting. But let me tell you about these new chips and overclocking. I don't think you can get much out of them without ridiculous cooling. These things are hot. Super
really?
Hot. Yes. And they're ridiculously hot. Dave 2D, right? He put up a video where he slapped like the 12900K.
So is the embargo over now?
I guess so, because everyone posted their videos. So yeah.
Okay.
Dave 2D posted a video where he talked about slapping it in his like really cool tiny teal machine, and the cooler he had in there was not enough to cool the chip that he had in there. I don't know if it was the i9 or what, but he ended up having to put like a what's the Corsair like kind of top of the line water cool boy, like
Ace.
you know what I'm talking about, the all in one.
Oh well, it's an all-in-one. That seems
Yeah, it's like the two.
H110i or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's like one of those.
Yeah.
He shoved it in there just to get it to where he could actually cool the CPU. And I thought he had an interesting take. Also, he was like pre-built machines. It's very unlikely that they're gonna cool sufficiently. Like he had an Alienware machine he showed that used like a all in one cooler, but it was like one of those 120 millimeter ones that are basically dumb as hell. And he said that there's no way like that would have just throttled. You know,
Yeah.
you can't cool
Yeah.
like this thing runs super hot. And it kind of allows itself to boost like well into 90C, you know.
What's the? I don't know if you've watched enough on it, but like, what's the TJ Max and what's the highest boost clock?
I'll say this: I'm not sure, but Linus said that it boosted like 230 watts.
That's a toasty boy.
Yeah, he said it was boosted like 230 watts, approaching like 250. So it was nutty. But like, so maybe with like some really beast cooling, there's some headroom there, but it is hot. So to me, I think it's an interesting processor. My takeaway is it's going to be a beast on the desktop side, albeit hot. So you need to have good cooling. I think that there's no way they're going to put these chips, even if they cut them down, into laptops and be able to beat AMD. Like AMD, I think are winning in performance per watt, and that's just going to make them win the laptop game. Like you slap these in laptops, they're going to be good performers, but they're going to be loud and hot. Like,
I mean,
like this architecture in particular. I don't know. I could be wrong, but like it's barely keeping up on the desktop. Like it's hot.
I think that my barometer is off, but I have two AMD Surfaces at work.
Okay.
Surface laptops, and I'm not that impressed with the battery life. But again, my barometer is
well, it's because we've used far superior products in that category, right? But that's the thing, though. I don't feel like Intel's really doing any innovation in that department, like specifically. I don't think that it's impressive. But yeah, I like how at least in the performance department you are competitive. You're beating the 5950X in single core and multi-core. That's good. I don't know about prices. I didn't look. I'm just looking at pure performance. Another thing people are speculating is some of this could be because of DDR5. You know, these boards are being benched often with DDR5, which is giving its own performance gains, right? So,
yeah.
You know, I think that you're getting rid of different
point.
bottlenecks. You're improving, you know, latency and performance across the board. I think that's good. I think that, you know, that's great. So I don't know if this is going to be a paper launch scenario where we'll never see these chips out in the wild. That's a really good, you know, like because of silicon shortage. Are people going to even be able to get these things when they come out? I don't know. So. You know, I just thought it was interesting though. So take a look at it tomorrow or something, and
I will.
And give me some, give me your hot takes on it. But my hot take is they're hot,
hot boys,
hot boys, good performers, hot boys.
I mean, I'm just thinking right now, if I were to drop one in my current computer, and this is assuming no overclocking, right? This is just assuming you're what would you say 230 or 250 watts.
Yeah.
That's basically like a 1080 Ti.
Yeah.
Essentially. My graphics card pulls 525, sometimes 530 watts.
Mm-hmm.
So if I put like a 230 watt TDP processor in there, like that's going to be some hot water, dude. I'll be like cooking soup over there.
I know. I was like, dang, dude, maybe I have a chip that's actually worthy of my insane water cooling setup over here, you know?
Yeah.
I don't need it though. The 5950X is kind of like processors for me aren't a yearly purchase. Like GPUs, maybe processors, not even close. So
yeah, I'm kind of having some issues though. Obviously,
if you're disappointed with your CPU, what do you got right now?
3900 XT.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm not disappointed with it in gaming. I'm not, right? Like it's fine for gaming. The problem is I do a lot of other stuff now, right? Like I
work like actually like what do you call it when it's not gaming? Productivity.
Productivity. Yeah. Yeah. Like, to give you an example, like
Yeah.
the reason I have a 3900X or a 3900 XT is because I wanted an X570 motherboard that would support the Zen 3 processors.
Yeah.
But my 3900 XT is fine. So
Yeah.
I never saw a reason to get a Zen 3. But now it's kind of like, I don't know. And like, it's to the point where it's like, do I even do it?
Yeah. I don't know, man.
You know what
Like
I mean?
you
Like, do I
probably don't,
even?
dude. Let's be real, because most of our tasks now are GPU accelerated to a degree. So you're not always hitting, like, especially your productivity tasks. Like if you're doing video rendering and stuff, that's typically GPU accelerated. Um,
I could tell you right now that every task I do, productivity wise, crushes my processor, and that's where the
Dang.
scheduler came down, right? Like if I import photos into Lightroom, like if I take
Good point.
700 photos, which is not really that hard to do. If you're shooting at 12, 20, and in your case 30 FPS, and
Yeah.
you're shooting an event, like 700 photos at 45 or 50 megapixels, it's
Yeah.
a large chunk of data. So like if I import them into Capture One or Lightroom, and it generates and it imports 745 megapixel photos, and then it creates smart previews for all of those photos, my computer is literally out of commission for 40 minutes. And
Yeah.
that's all cores paid at 100%. And then this is where like the scheduler comes in, because I literally like I'll go robotic if I'm on Discord or TeamSpeak. I can't do that. I can't even talk on TeamSpeak anymore while that's importing.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, so
ridiculous. You're right. I mean, so maybe if anyone is in the market for a new chip, it could be you. But there goes a new motherboard. Now you need DDR5 because,
yeah.
and
But
like,
as we
you
get
know,
into the next topic, I'm
yes,
kind of thinking of splitting my life maybe, and just keeping my desktop for gaming, and then
that's it.
using the MacBook for productivity.
Yeah,
Because I really like the idea of like a mobile workstation, but in the past, there was always a massive performance hit with that, right? Like there was always a massive performance hit. I feel like this is a pretty good segue.
we're
Anyway,
gonna move into
if
it.
if you're done with the topic,
I'm done.
then yeah, we'll just use this as a segue, because it kind of ties into like desktop processors and what we're going into.
Right.
But I feel like now with the laptop you have, like the gap has been closed.
Yeah. It's true, and let me get into that. So for the viewers that don't know, because obviously Randy and I are talking all day, every day. This is
Yeah,
the M1. Let me hold it up properly.
I
This
can't
is.
even see you, dude. This is weird.
Oh shoot! I'm sorry. We went to do the Zoom call so you could see it.
Yeah,
Here,
dude,
I'll
it's
send
fine.
you the invite while we're doing it. But
No, no, let's not do that,
is your
because
processor gonna die?
no, but then there's a good possibility that my cam link will be like, he wants to use it on Zoom, and then we're gonna lose the
Ah,
OBS thing. You know
Jesus
what I'm saying?
Christ. Okay, yeah.
So
So here's what I'll do, dude. I'm sorry I didn't notice. We should have started that. But check this out. This is the for the viewers that can see it. This is the 14-inch boy. This is the new M1 Max MacBook Pro in the 14-inch size. You can see the embossed text on the back that says, if it would focus, MacBook Pro. Look how nice that is. And I've been using this for, I don't know, not even a week now. And but I've had a lot of fun with it. I have a lot to say about it, and we're gonna be doing I'm gonna actually do a video review on it, which I have the script up that I'm writing on the thing as well. So I figured Randy had a lot of questions for me. We
I
haven't really
do, I
talked
do.
much about
Before we
my
move forward,
impressions.
I just want to add that we are adding like review videos to the channel.
Yes.
I think your first one will be the MacBook,
Yep. That's
and
the
my
plan.
first one will be about a month long review with the 13 Pro, coming from what myself and you and many people consider to be the best Android phone app. So that
Yeah.
will be my video.
Yeah. So we'll it'll be good. It'll be good to have reviews and other videos on the channel. But I've been spending a lot of time trying to figure out how I feel about this machine, because depending on who you are, it may or may not be for you. I know it's for me. Okay. I know it's for me as somebody
Interesting.
because I love this thing so much. What do you want to know, dude?
All
Because I
right,
could talk
so
about it, or you could ask me questions. What do you want to do?
let me ask questions, okay?
Okay.
Because I feel like I've watched a lot of content on this, like a real lot. I'm sure you have too. And
I
like there
have.
have been questions that have come up that I haven't had answers to yet. So I
Yes.
can either ask you some basic questions, or I can take an approach that would maybe assume that our viewers have seen other people's content and kind of want more deeper dives.
I think that's the right play. I know
Okay.
that's how we're going to do it with our reviews, right? Like,
Right.
you know, if you haven't seen anything, if you're a listener right now and you haven't seen anything about this laptop, I'm surprised because, you know, I doubt that will be your first time hearing about it. But you know, for those of you that are interested, go ahead. If you want the general summary of like what this machine is, go watch The Verge or something, you know, like watch somebody else's review. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like we're gonna give you our hot takes on it that are important to us.
Okay.
We want to be different than the other people because that's really what's gonna make us stand out. So
Yeah,
what do
that's
you
kind of
think,
what's going
man?
to separate us. So, you know, first and foremost, I just want to go back and say that Eric and I both bought the 13-inch M1 MacBooks
Yep.
on launch around last holiday, like last Christmas, I think it was, right?
Right. I mean, yeah,
Uh,
it was like November is when it. I didn't get it until later though. I know I got Amanda I gave her a M1 MacBook Air for Christmas, and I gave that to her early. I liked it so much that I had to go out and get the MacBook Pro for myself. So yeah, great first impression on the new Apple Silicon chips. I loved the M1 MacBook Pro so much, the 13-inch, and I think that you loved it too, right? You still do.
right. I still do.
Yeah.
Right. So just so everyone's aware, I did not purchase a new MacBook yet, and that's not because I want one. It's because there's a lot of options, and those options will kind of sway my decision on which one I get. And
Yes.
it's not like, in my opinion, there's like a clear cut best choice. Like Apple
It
has
depends on
given
who
the
you are.
users choices or specifications that would really benefit their use cases. So I'm gonna just jump right into it. So today, uh, I used my MacBook Pro at work, and I used it unplugged for all day, and I came home with 66% battery.
The 13-inch is still going to be the battery king. You know what I mean? Whether you get the Air or the Pro, the 13s are going to be like they just can't like even if you fully like push the CPU to 100%, it's still crazy efficient. I don't know how much it pulls um like like it's max TDP or whatever, but it's like you can't push it hard enough to drain the battery fast. It's kind of nutty. That's not the case with these new machines. Let's just say that. If you get the
Yeah.
Pro, it's even less so, right? The Pro is going to be the more efficient, the more efficient CPU, right, or SoC, I guess, right?
So it looks like the M1 TDP is 15 watts.
Yeah, the M1 is
It's like nothing.
insane, right?
Yeah.
Now you can pull like on the M1 Max like over 100 watts. I know with the 16-incher you can. With the 14, which I have in front of me, it's like 90 something, which is still a much more power draw and heat production than the 13-inch with just the M1. It's you can tell a large difference. This thing actually will ramp its fans, like whereas the 13-inch, even if you're pegging it at 100%, dude, that fan barely makes any noise, which
You
is
hear the fans.
you absolutely do hear the fans in the 14.
Like
You absolutely hear them.
compare them to the old i9, because I believe we also both had that one, right?
Correct. So the old i9 16-inch MacBook Pro, when it was still Intel, was louder. It was definitely louder. So this is somewhere in between the M1 13-inch and the old i9 16-inch. It's kind of like this in between. And depending on who you are, you might not like that. Like you might have grown to appreciate, like I have, the silentness of the MacBook Air, or sorry, not the MacBook Air. That thing is completely silent with no fans. But the 13-inch MacBook Pro, which is practically silent. You know what I mean?
Now I've seen some reviews where people have said that the 16 is near silent because the fans were almost twice the size.
If that's true, that's great. Because I mean, theoretically, you have the same chip. Like you can get the same chip in the 14 as you can the 16. There's a lot more headroom for fans and ventilation and cooling in the 16. So yeah, the 16 would be better, get almost guaranteed when it comes to thermals. So like I have the worst case scenario right here. My battery's going to die the fastest because I have smaller batteries, and I have worse cooling. So it's going to be hotter. It's going to be louder. So yeah, definitely the 16 is, but that's the trade-off, right? Like you get a smaller package that's kind of akin to the 13-inch MacBook Pro, which I love that size. So the 14 is kind of like a little bit bigger. It's kind of like this sweet spot that I really like. I feel like the 16 to me is too large, even though it's beautiful, but it's kind of a desk thing. It's not really a type of laptop. You know what I mean?
It's a yeah. You kind of have to like deploy it. Honestly, I'm probably leaning more towards the 16. After seeing the reviews, I'm kind of leaning more towards the 16.
The 16 is going to be a fantastic machine, and I'm sure that display being so big, it's going to be beautiful, right? Like I kind of wish I had the 16 in some ways, because I remember having my i9 16-inch next to my M1 13-inch and going, damn, dude, this display's so beautiful. Like I kind of don't want to lose it, but I kind of got used to that, fun portable size of the 13. So with this one, I decided to go with that in between. Like I went with the 14. Maybe in 2 to 3 years, I'll decide to go to 16 or whatever. But I don't know. I like this size though. So what else you want to ask, dude? Give me some questions, quick.
Quick, dude. Quick, dude. Coming right in. Okay.
Shotgun.
So,
let's go.
Keyboard feel. How does the keyboard feel?
I think it feels good. I mean, I don't really think it's like different enough. I haven't like
close your eyes and I put your 13 in front of you or your 14. Would you be able to identify which was which?
I'm gonna be honest. I haven't done like an A/B test. I'm just feeling it right now. They kind of got a good thump to them when you push down. I won't say it's mechanical, but it kind of does feel tactile.
Okay.
So I like the bump. It's not necessarily clicky, but it's not really membrane either. It's kind of like an in-between that feels pretty good. I like the keyboard. I feel like it's if you enjoy MacBook keyboards, like this is just going to be I don't know if it's going to be significantly better. Like it's not blowing me away, but it's definitely, the best among them.
Sure. So I kind of want to transition into something that may be a little subjective, kind of like keyboard was.
Sure.
How are the speakers compared to the old 13 Pro chassis?
So I wrote about this quite a bit in my review. In my script, the speakers are unreal, dude. They're so good.
Are they good? Dude?
Yes. Oh my God, they're so good. So, in my review, I talk about all the software I'm running, and one of the things I talk about is music production, because I've been messing around with music making with Ableton Live. I think I have Ableton Live 10. That I do. And I love doing that, right? So I pulled up my song that I'm working on my 13-inch MacBook Pro and this new 14-inch. And I had them side by side, and I hit play on both, and I muted one, listened to it, and then I'd mute it and unmute the other one, and I did a side by side, and it's like night and day better.
Is it really? Wow.
It is so much. Impressive. And you know what's
because it is. The MacBook was already like an industry leader in that regard, I feel.
Absolutely. So I'll say this, when I had the i9 16-inch, it sounded better than the 13. You know what I mean? I can't tell you if this 14 sounds better than the i9 16, but it's pretty good. Like it's really, awesome. Really good. You can hear it in the mids and the low end. Like I'm hearing frequencies that are just kind of absent on the 13. And it's not even just the mid and low end. Like I say it in my review that like hi-hats and snares like just hit, and you can just hear the crispness. Like it just sounds so much more rich on the 14. And I bet you the 16, the new 16 is absolutely nuts if it sounds this good on the 14. Because, and I already know people are reporting the 16 sounds even better. So if you really care about that, like I kind of mentioned in my review, if you're doing music production, you probably have studio monitors of some kind, or like really nice, headphones for monitoring. But if you don't use those and you just want to like kind of have a jam session with your laptop on the couch, like it has amazing speakers, content consumption. it's just good. It really is. I love the speakers on this thing. I really do.
Yeah,
I
man,
do.
that's pretty cool. Uh, it's gonna sound really weird, but when I had my old i9 16, I
Yeah.
would take it outside and not need like a Bluetooth speaker to like listen to music on the patio. You
You
know what I mean?
don't.
Like it was kind of like that,
Yeah.
like that's kind of a value that I feel is just missed.
Dude,
You know what I
everybody
mean?
does it so much worse. Like I say this in my review. Windows laptops suck at audio. They suck at audio so bad. Like Apple is making everyone look like garbage.
Yeah.
Seriously. Seriously. And in more ways than just audio, but especially for sure in audio, right? It's kind of nutty. Like I don't know, I don't have measurements of this thing, so I can't tell you how accurate it is. I can just tell you my personal enjoyment of this, the audio on this is really positive. So it's
That's
not
great,
going to
man.
replace your dedicated setup, but it's really good.
So, my next question here. Again, some of the reviews have covered that there is some kind of software jankiness with the notch.
Yeah.
What's your take on it? And like, I feel like some channels kind of blew it out of proportion because it probably trends well or gets clicks or whatever. But
Yeah, I'm not trying
what's your
to.
take on real world on like actual like, oh man, this is a
Yeah.
problem.
No clickbait. So I'll tell you how I feel about it. It's mostly not a problem. Like I don't mind it at all from a like just personally. If y- there's I know that like Quinn, he was able to get stuff to hide behind it in his particular case where he had like stuff that would normally snap to the right and it kind of bled into the notch in the menu bar, and I get that. I'm sure it's possible. I'm sure Apple could have done something to kind of make that not happen, but
Hmm.
for the most part, like Resolve is kind of a great use case of like how it will all the menu selections it will span between the notch, and it doesn't let anything get behind it. And if you select, like, say you click on uh, one of the selections in the menu bar, and then you move your mouse, it'll automatically jump across the notch, which is kind of nice. And if you full screen, like if you say you're doing a full screen video,
Right.
and you try and bring your mouse to the top, it will actually, most full screen videos will crop the top off, right? But in addition to that crop, it won't let the mouse go above it either. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I can't push my mouse like kind of into that cropped area where the top of the screen is. It like caps off, like you can't push your mouse above it because it's cropped. I thought that was kind of cool because that's a software thing they did. So any kind of cropped content, you're not going to accidentally move your
That's good.
mouse out of
That's a good
the.
idea.
It
Yeah.
is. So I'd say for the most part, they've covered the bases, but there's one thing I noticed. If I play a game, it's an older game. It's not really old. It's still in development, but it's one of those weird indie titles that's probably Java based. It's called Star Sector. And if I play Star Sector in full screen, it will play in legit full screen, no crop.
Wow. Wow.
So it's like notch and all, like unapologetically full screen. And
Mhm.
it's awesome. Like it looks awesome. But the game does have, like, when you hover over stuff, it'll like give you a little tooltip in the top middle of the screen where the notch is. So, okay, in that particular game, it's a problem. And I haven't really gone out of my way to like see if I can force it to like change this resolution to be like 16 by 10 and kind of crop it, or 16 by 9 or whatever. I just noticed that by default that was what happened, and I'm sure I could play in windowed mode. I'm sure I could do things to fix it, but that was the one
Sure.
time I noticed that like Mac OS didn't like put it in a cropped little window, right? So
No, that's
some
fair. That's fair.
dedicated full screen sort of apps will potentially actually full screen where you have a notch, and then it might be a problem.
Yeah. Personally, I don't think it would bother me. I just seemed like it felt kind of un-Apple.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, some people were speculating that, they were gonna do Face ID, but maybe because of silicon shortage and other like parts supply issues that they just didn't include it, but they already planned for the notch, And I mean, that sounds kind of plausible, right? Like you
Yeah,
already
like
build
did
supply
you watch
chain around this display.
Max Tech's video about why the square Apple Watch thing was supposed to happen?
No, tell me.
Oh, dude, it's really good. So essentially, uh, um, he basically said that the reason, like it's a really good video. I suggest anyone watch it. It's like 18 minutes long, and he basically said that due to supply chain constraints, they had to cancel the Square Apple Watch, and he goes through all of these reasons as to why that's the case. And one of the reasons is how the Series 7 ended up. Basically with like how like the cover glass was what had to be made thicker, and that's because he said that the display was made for flat glass on top.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding.
And that's why they had to raise it up and then sell the thicker glass as a feature, because they already had the flat displays made for it. And they couldn't fit the larger flat displays in the old design. Like, it was a really good, really good video that goes into like all this detail about like how you can kind of work back and see the changes that are apparent in the Series 7, even in a teardown video that shows that it was designed for completely different casing, but they had to reverse engineer it. And that's why we even got the same processor as in the Series 6. Like, it's the same exact processor. It has the same exact part number, has the same exact everything. Yep.
What?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that blows my mind.
Yeah,
that blows my mind.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So like Apple kind of pulled this last minute switcheroo where they were able to revert like kind of retrofit the larger the new screen into the same body, but they had to like make the cover glass thicker, and they kind of passed it off as like a durability feature. But really, it was just to fit the display for the newer designed watch that they couldn't do because of supply
so that
supply
render
chain
was
constraints.
real.
Yeah,
that was real, and they just couldn't do it. That makes so much sense, and maybe that's even why they had to delay so long. I wonder if that's true. What do you think?
He does say that as well. He says that because the change happened so late into the display, into the process, that there was no way that they would have had stock for the Apple Watch event. You know?
Oh my gosh.
So he's saying that based off of what he knows, there's a good possibility that when they showcased the Apple Watch Series 7, that they didn't even have production started yet on them.
Oh
and like, I could kind of believe that, because I literally purchased my Series 7 stainless steel at 8:02 was when I got my receipt. So like, I've already gotten in the store, I've already placed my order, and I got my confirmation email at 8:02, and I didn't get my watch until almost Halloween. Yeah. So and
that's like on Apple, right? Like normally when they announce, they launch right away. Like this new MacBook was like, okay, shipping next week. You know what I mean? And like that didn't happen with the Apple Watch at all. So that makes total sense. So that's kind of crazy. And this is just the world we live in right now with the silicon shortage. But yeah, dude. Hook me up with another question, or I'll talk about some things that matter to me.
Yeah, dude. Well, it's kind of coming back full circle, but it's something that like is really important to me. What's your work laptop?
I use this. I use this laptop right here. So, I mean, the work provides me with a laptop.
Yeah, what's your work provided laptop?
It's like a Dell, like Lenovo, whatever.
Okay.
Not
relatively
Lenovo,
modern.
But, yeah, it is. It's got USB-C.
How does that compare? How's the battery life on that compared to the new 14 you have?
You know what? I never use it on battery, dude. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it kind of stays plugged in. But I'll tell you from experience, that thing sucks.
Really?
Absolutely stinks. Like the laptop, it's thin and small, but it's always ramping its fans, and I'm doing nothing at all. So. Yeah, it's just bad, dude. But yeah, so I end up just using my own personal laptop, dude. I can't tell you how good the battery is in that thing. It sucks.
Do you feel like you can take your 14 to work and not have to take a charger like you can with the 13?
I haven't. So I'm gonna be honest. Like, I just got back in the office today. For the first time.
You can kind of get a feeling like if this will last me 8 hours or not. Right?
I don't know yet. I plugged it in today, and at work because I have a like whatever the 100-watt charger is or whatever
Sure.
USB-C one that I've had since I had the 16-inch Intel i9 MacBook Pro, and I just leave that one at work. So I was plugging in USB-C charging while I was there, just because I could. And I mean, I haven't plugged it in since, and I'm at 79%, but I haven't done anything on my laptop other than just like have it open. I played around with Ableton earlier, but like I'd say it lasts a pretty good amount of time. Like realistically, like in the M1 Max, how many performance cores and how many efficiency cores are there? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head.
I
No.
don't either. Can I go to like about this Mac and find out? I'm just trying to see if I can. Because I have no idea off the top of my head, which I probably should know. But I think it has less efficiency cores than the M1 Mac does. I think because it was like 8 and was it 4 and 4, something like that, in the M1.
Don't know.
I know this has like way more performance cores. I'm not sure if it has the same amount of efficiency cores. I'd say it's still relatively efficient. Like if you're not using the power, especially the GPU, right? Then you're not really going to feel like you're still going to have a pretty nice battery efficient laptop. But as soon as like you go and do something demanding, it's going to do it. And it's going to do it at the expense of battery life.
Okay, so the M1 has 4 efficiency and 4 high performance. The M1 Pro has 8 high performance and 2 efficiency cores.
Yeah, so even less.
Efficiency I don't know cores. How much the
Max has.
It's not, yeah.
I'll pull it up just because I'm curious if I can. But M1 Max chip. Let's see if I can find it. But I know that the difference between the Pro and the Max is basically mostly in the GPU department, which is like kind of nuts. And also there's, memory. You can have more memory and stuff. But I'm unsure if the Max has more CPU cores. Let's see. It has the same powerful 10-core CPU as the M1 Pro and adds 32-core GPU. So it's basically the same thing as the Pro CPU-wise. It just has more GPU performance, more memory bandwidth, and a higher maximum amount of memory, which, in this machine that I have, it's the M1 Max with the 10-core CPU, 32-core GPU, and 64 gigs of unified memory. So it's basically top-of-the-line spec with 2 terabyte hard drive.
That's crazy. I watched a video where like some guy was editing, I think it was like 8K ProRes or something along those lines. But his memory pressure was like 46 gigabytes.
Wow.
Which is really odd to me. I mean, not odd, but like, I'm thinking like, that's a lot. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, so it must be caching so much of that 8K footage or whatever. Like, I don't know what it's putting in memory, but I mean, that's where that memory bandwidth comes in. And
my point for bringing that up is I feel like it's a good thing that like whatever software or whatever scheduler does that, it's saying, hey, I have this memory, I'm going to use it,
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad. And it's split between the CPU and GPU tasks because it's unified memory. So, and that's fantastic. You know what I mean? Like that's really efficient. And I think that's fantastic. If you're these laptops are kind of designed for video editors. I mean, am I right? Because you have built-in encoders, ProRes.
I wouldn't necessarily
hardware.
Say I wouldn't single out video editing. I would say just content creators in general.
In general, yeah.
But like it's really good for like photo editing and stuff too. From the experience I've seen, like let me
rephrase
it. Photo editing.
If you're I think that the M1 Max is more like is kind of designed for that. I think a lot of people would get off just fine with just the M1 Pro processor.
I think a lot of people would get out fine with just the Air if we're going to go down that route.
No, you're 100% right. So the Air, I mean, it depends on what you're doing. Everything does, but like, I think personally that with what I do, I really like the Max. I feel like I can actually utilize this performance with like DaVinci Resolve and such. I think that it's going to be fantastic. I haven't even tested Resolve, so I have a lot of things planned for what I'm going to do to test it, you know? But other than that, like, I haven't done any testing yet with Resolve. I've tested a couple things. Let me pull up my notes and tell you what I've gone over. So Blender, I did some Blender tests, and I've
Okay.
talked about it extensively. And I've done Capture One a little bit, not a ton. And then
You
I did
hate
some
photos,
gaming
dude.
testing.
You hate photos.
I love photos, dude. I just haven't
Mm-hmm.
taken any, since I've been on travel and stuff. Like, I haven't really had time to take any. But I have done a couple photos on there, but nothing I would consider a benchmark. Like, I've done stuff, and it's perform like Capture One performs really well on the thing, and
Yeah.
it looks beautiful. Like, the display is just unreal. But I haven't really pushed it to its limit. I haven't imported like 500 photos, like you're saying, and then saw how fast it generates previews and everything. Like, I haven't done anything
Yeah, that's huge for
hardcore.
me. That's huge. I've also noticed that sometimes on my desktop, if I start, how like you can make layers and then apply specific masks to layers
I
in
do that
Capture
all
One.
the time.
Yeah, that is kind of depends on like how large my photo is. That is kind of not a good experience on my Windows machine sometimes.
Yeah, so I definitely don't have an optimized workflow on the PC because I store all of my photos on the network. So I already have like limitations with network access. Like, that's my biggest
Mm.
bottleneck is it has to read everything off of my NAS. So that's slow. So I already tolerate that barely. But like, I'm at the point now where like these raw photos are large and I don't really want to wait on my NAS, and I don't have a 10 gig link yet. So I'm basically
Right,
like, okay, I'm just going to keep my photos on device and have a backup on my NAS or something. You know what I mean?
right.
Um, because I'm kind of fed up with slow performance, especially with video editing. Because I was doing video editing off of my NAS also. Like, you can tolerate editing over the NAS with photos, but like with
Sure.
video editing, especially now that I'm doing 8K, there's no way. There's no way you can do it.
I know, man. I'm still in the camp that like I don't think an 8K workflow is really necessary for a lot of people. Um, I know you like it
No.
because you have it, but like I know a bunch of channels that started in 4K and then went to 8K and then went back to 4K.
I see that too. I mean,
What?
MKBHD works in 8K, but he publishes in 4K timelines, right?
Yeah,
So, but like, you can crop 8K like really nice, so it's kind of cool, Like, if you're publishing in 4K, you want to try and have better than 4K footage if you're going to crop it. And that's really where 8K comes in.
yeah,
6K can happen, you know what I mean? You can maybe have 6K footage.
yeah.
Um,
I don't know. Like for me, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze yet. Like you may think otherwise, but like I personally don't think it's worth the storage space, the processing power, the time, the effort. I think 4K is fine. Where I'm really interested because that's how my mindset is one thing I found out that really brings like DaVinci Resolve to its knees
mm,
on both of my machines is what we did the other day. Like if you add a qualifier and then add a blur to that qualifier, my performance goes in the shit tubes, dude. Uh,
yeah,
like a blur with a
yeah.
qualifier is really taxing on you on a computer. So like that is something I'd be
Okay.
interested in seeing.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do
Yeah.
is I'm going to have a test file with several different scenarios, and I'm going to have it open across all three of my test machines, which is
Hmm.
this new 14-inch MacBook Pro, my old 13-inch M1 MacBook Pro, and then my PC with the 5950X and GPU acceleration with the 3080. And I'm going to do the comparison. I'm going to say, okay, how does each scenario work? How does timeline performance work on each? How does color grading work? Does it slow down after a qualifier or like multiple
Yeah.
layers? Like, where is the bottlenecks on each? Where do you get performance gains on each? I want to see if I can tell Resolve when optimizing media to optimize in ProRes, or like make ProRes proxies, or like maybe make proxies that the Mac has hardware acceleration for, because if that does work and I can generate optimized media, that the M1 Max has hardware to accelerate, then that's going to be excellent. Like, you're going to have amazing, like, if you're working in ProRes on Final Cut, ProRes or ProRes RAW, you're going to have amazing performance because you have hardware acceleration, and that's nutty. But like, if I can't work in ProRes, if I'm stuck with whatever codec Sony uses on their cameras, which people say is kind of slow and not really accelerated on many things, then yeah, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, people say that Canon's All-I, whatever it is a bear to work into. So
Yeah.
That being said, yeah, man, like that's kind of stuff that I'm curious with, is like what performances in my workflow am I going to see? And I think the biggest hits I have from a video editing standpoint is blur qualifiers and multiple grades using serial nodes. Those are like the two like crushers for me. So
Right. So I'm definitely going to do an extensive resolve test. I get upset, dude. Can I just say, I keep seeing videos from people like they're running benchmarks and tests with things like Resolve and Blender, and they don't know the first things about the software.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I see it all the time, especially Blender. Like, people just kind of, they'll download a fucking test render and they'll run it, and then they'll be like, it got this time. But you don't know how to configure Blender to be like optimal on that hardware. You might not be using GPU acceleration, or you might be like, and you don't know these things. So how are you going to, like, to me, it just invalidates you if you haven't, I don't know. It makes me upset personally. Blender specifically, because,
Yeah, but like, you're really good at Blender. Like, not many people are as good as you are at Blender.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I'm an actual Blender user. Like, I feel like,
Blender boy,
yeah,
dude.
like, as a user of Resolve and as a user of Blender, when I see people that are kind of doing like these half-ass like tests, I kind of just get upset. I'm like, dude, you could test it so much better, and that's what I aim to do in my review, right? So, like, you know how I made that little animation on Blender with the TV and the cloth physics and everything? I basically opened up that project on this laptop and then my 13-inch boy, and I did two major tests. Render times, everyone does that, but how is the preview window performance? Like, is actually working inside of it? It's kind of like the same thing with Resolve. Timeline performance is different than render performance. Same with Blender. The preview window and how smooth it is to actually interact with your 3D objects and model versus rendering, they're two different things. I'll say that the actual working within the preview window in Blender is twice as fast. It's laggy on the M1, just moving around my very dense scene, but it's twice as smooth on this M1 Max MacBook Pro, which is already way better. It's still laggy because I have a suboptimal preview window. Like, I'm not using like any kind of decimated meshes or anything. Everything is like very high resolution and taxing, but it is much easier to deal with on my laptop. Let me just say this though, about Blender, and I'm probably going to mention it in my review. Blender, Apple just joined the Blender Foundation, like their development fund, and they're going to be adding Metal API support. So
that's crazy.
Soon in Blender 3.1, which isn't out yet, it's in alpha, but they haven't added the Metal support yet, because I definitely checked. And I downloaded Blender 3.1 alpha just to make sure. It's not in there yet, but after they add Metal support, dude, I bet you Blender's going to be crazy, at least in the rendering department. Hopefully it accelerates the preview window as well, because if it does, this thing's going to be a Blender monster. Rendering is about twice as fast. It rendered a frame of my footage in like 18 minutes, whereas on my M1 MacBook Pro, it almost took 30. So that's a significant boost.
Yeah,
but that's just
a huge time
CPU
savings.
only.
That's
And
a huge time savings.
it is, but like, until they add GPU, GPU rendering with the Metal, like the actual GPU on board this chip, it is not even coming close to what you do on the desktop. Like, the desktop renders in like 2 minutes instead of 18. You know what I mean? So, and that's just because of GPU acceleration. And But when that comes, like when metal support comes, Blender's gonna just be awesome on this thing. I have a feeling. I
Yeah,
can't wait.
probably so.
Maybe even again, like I don't know if it's gonna be like a 3080 good, but I'm really curious, dude. I think it's gonna be awesome. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that, dude. I tested Ableton Live 10. Not much to say there because like Ableton is cool because in the top corner it'll tell you how much of the CPU it's using, like percentage. And
I wish you had Final Cut, because like I think a Final Cut versus Resolve thing would be pretty awesome.
yeah, I've been thinking about purchasing Final Cut just to kind of play around and know what the competition is. Because a lot of people use Final Cut workflows, you know, video editing and everything. And I'm interested in just knowing Final Cut. Not that I want to use it. Like I really do like Resolve, and because I'm multi-platform, I'm on Windows and on Mac. I kind of like to stay into Resolve. But at the same time, like I respect Final Cut for what it can do, because people working in ProRes, like that seems like a dream.
Yeah.
So, you know what I really want to do though? I want to do HDR so bad. And I want to talk about HDR. You got a second for that?
I do.
Because the Pro Display XDR on this MacBook is like stunning, dude. It's so good. I sent you a little video yesterday. I don't know if you watched it, but it was like me talking about Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And it was basically like I had the benchmark running on both, but like more so than the frame rate improvements, the fact that the game was actually like in HDR on this machine with like 1600 nits peak brightness, it looked so good. It might even be the best display in my house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, no, that's not true. You have a C177. Get out of here, dude.
Yeah, but that's only 750 nits, dude. Like the peak brightness sucks on those things, dude. I'm serious. And you have to deal with ABL. Like you might only have 1,000 nits sustained on this machine across the screen.
We're talking about like movie playback, right? Like we're not talking about desktop usage.
Right.
Like I feel like your C177 is still maybe better
Well,
for movies.
it depends. I think that it depends, dude. This display is like, when it comes to HDR consumption, what I found out, I used to think that I was a brightness nut. Like I always liked displays that were bright. But it turns out I just love dynamic range. That's what I love, dude. And having like crazy peak brightness makes a difference to me. Like it's the difference between like looking out the window versus like not. You know what I mean? Like it's
so you are a brightness nut.
I love brightness so much. Like the thing about these, I mentioned that in my review. I was basically like, it might even beat out my LG displays as far as like HDR consumption experience, because it's just like, to me, I don't have any of those. Like, okay, you know how like when you're benchmarking HDR, you always have those people that have like the star field where you have those individual points. And this is where OLED excels, because you have per pixel lighting. Yeah, you'll probably have blooming on this machine versus like you're not going to beat the deep blacks of OLED like ever. But OLED has some major drawbacks. These LG displays, the fact that you have ABL that limits your peak brightness, and even in the best case scenario, you're going to get 750 nits peak on these pixels. Like that's nowhere near as bright
as the C1 750. And does ABL show up?
ABL is definitely present on everything.
Yeah, but like everything. I thought ABL like takes like doesn't kick in for a couple of seconds.
ABL kicks in immediately, dude.
Really?
Yeah, it kicks in immediately as soon as you like full screen something, or like there's a scene. Like as soon as you transition to like a desert that's bright or something, you were in a dark scene before you transition to a bright desert. Bam, your peak brightness just lowers. Which, to be fair, sometimes you don't want to fucking be blind by a bright HDR image. So ABL kind of saves your ass sometimes, but like I'm a sucker for getting flashbanged with 1,000 nits peak brightness on my PG27UQ. I love brightness, and like I think that I might prefer brightness. I don't know. It's really a toss up, man. I think it depends on the content.
You want to come get my Q90R?
No,
and I'll
dude.
take
I love
your
like
C1, dude.
the C1 is unbelievable. And I love my C1 so much. Like my TV behind me, you can see it in the frame. Well, no, you can't because I'm cropped. But I love that TV so much. Like it's so beautiful. The OLED, I love OLED displays. But as far as like this display on this M1 14-inch M1 Mac, and I'm sure the 16 is just as good. It's so good. Like HDR content is so good. I went out of my way to see if I could find games on Steam that supported HDR, and like there's literally none. Like almost literally none. I'd say that. Okay, let me tell you the highlights of who supports HDR. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which I already have. Divinity Original Sin 2, which is an awesome game, but I've already beat it. And then Baldur's Gate 3, the new one that's coming out, that's in early access, does support HDR. So that's going to be the best probably experience you can get on this thing. But like not many.
You play Baldur's Gate 3 on Mac?
Yeah, you can.
Natively?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's ARM support, but it has a Mac client.
Mac client?
It's
Awesome.
probably Intel, but it's going to run amazing. You know what I mean? I haven't played it yet because it's early access, so I've been waiting on it to kind of bake, you know?
Yeah.
But like, there's not many games there's not many games on Mac, but there's even less HDR capable games. And I want to see this display like cut loose on an HDR game because it looks so good. Like that Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark looks so good and runs so well that I was like, God, I wish I could just play a game on this right now. You know, because in SDR content, it limits it to like 500 nits, which is kind of like, okay, it's bright. It looks the same as my 13-inch, you know what I mean, at that point, with better blacks because it's like doing the dimming of the dark areas, right? Because it's got the mini LED display. So like the display undoubtedly looks better, like just normal SDR content. But yeah, I don't know, dude. But like that's my favorite thing about this. Probably the display, dude. The HDR experience on it is great. The biggest problem is there's just not enough HDR content, especially on like things like YouTube. And even if there is on YouTube, like I use Firefox, which doesn't even support HDR on YouTube. Like I had to use Chrome can you do it in Safari? I don't know.
I don't know.
But I know Chrome. Like first thing I did when I got this was launch a Chrome window, pull up YouTube and then search for HDR shit. And I was like, yeah, that looks pretty good. What do you mean? I wanted to see the HDR, dude. I wanted to see 1600 nits peak brightness, 1000 nits sustained. Beautiful colors.
Did you peaked it?
I peaked. Dude, I'm a display nut. You know me. I'm an absolutely huge display nut. I love display technology. And like the fact that I'm getting, I never even mentioned ProMotion. It looks good, but it's not going to sell you on it. Games can run at 120 FPS, which is nice, you know, which is cool. But like, if you got a game that runs on this thing, you know what I mean? But it's nice. Anyway, dude. I've been rambling quite a bit, man. Do you have any other questions about this? Because obviously you were between the 14 and the 16. And...
I still am. You know, like battery life is like critical to me because like, I don't know. I kind of always have this like vision of like editing photos or videos in like a Starbucks.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Okay.
So like, I don't want to hinder that experience. Like there was part of me that even thought of maybe getting a 16 Pro.
Can you lug around a 16 now that you've had the 13?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, you're getting one for work, right?
Yeah.
So you'll know.
So, yeah.
Right? You'll know. Like, just hold the 13 and realize the 14 is basically the 13. And then, like, take the 16 and be like, okay, which one is the 16 portable enough? And if it is, get the 16, dude. Because the 16 is going to be better on battery because it's bigger. It's going to have better cooling. You're going to have the max performance mode, which is like exclusive to the 16, even though I don't know really if you're getting any kind of max performance or what, but it is limited. I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you right now. I'm actually launching Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I'm going to run the bench and I'm going to point my mic at it.
Okay. Okay. Dude, I was kind of hoping you would have done this episode from the MacBook microphones.
Oh yeah. That's kind of funny. Maybe another time, but, I haven't tested the microphones on them. I'm sure they're good, but like, they ain't going to beat the SM7B, you know, they're not going to beat they'll be good, you know, I don't know if they'll be as good as like the M1 13-inch MacBook Pro had decent mics. I don't know if these are like
I
even
think
better.
I think people care about good enough, right? So like if you can make a, I don't know. Like,
I'll say this, like the 13-inch MacBook Pro was great for Zoom calls, like just like as is. The 14's probably a little bit better, but like I won't say like you should buy your laptop for it. Like it's probably good enough for like most things. I don't know if it's good enough to like record your like album off of or some shit. You know what I mean? Maybe. I'm sure some people
who
do. Like
knows?
they always show
Yeah,
the demo where the guy's like got his acoustic guitar and he's
I don't
strumming.
know the reality of that.
Yeah.
But
They always show that though. Like, oh, it's a studio and like this the dude like recording into his Mac. I'm sure it's good enough. Like, because like a lot of times you're gonna process that audio anyway, like add the reverb and do stuff to it. So like you probably could get away with using the Mac's built-in mics because they're not
sure.
bad, but like, they're not gonna beat a real mic. Yeah, man. I'm running the benchmark. The fans haven't ramped yet. It kind of, it takes a
No
minute to heat
rampage,
up.
dude. What's ambient in your house right now?
According to my Ecobee thermostat, give me 1 second because I can't get to it as fast as I could on my iPhone. It always takes me a second on the Android. It says it's 69 in here.
Giggity.
Yeah, then I'm running the bench. Yeah, it hasn't ramped the fans yet, so it does take a minute. I'm at 120 frames per second right now on freaking. It's dipping down to like 100 on the Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I wish I could show it to you, but it's so pretty. If it gets loud, I'll point the mic at it, but
Loud boy.
so like what's your like main concern with this laptop, dude? It's good. My
Size and battery. So like again, I'm gonna come back and kind of come full circle.
yeah.
And tell you that I love the size of the 13 from like a portability standpoint. But then I have situations where like, all right, I'm going to, and this is your fault by the way, 'cause you got me in a video where I'm gonna like, all right, I'm gonna open up DaVinci, and like feel like the 16 might be a little bit better there.
You
I
know
see
what? It's going to
value
be
in the
better in
16.
screen real estate too. Like
Well, that's the
the
point I'm at,
13's a
right?
little
Like
cramped.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how cramped the UI would be on the 13.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? I noticed that the 14 is better. Like I had Ableton open on both, not DaVinci. I haven't really messed with it yet, but like Ableton, I can see more audio tracks on the 14, and I like that. Like the 13's just a little cramped. Even like how you can change like the kind of like the scaling, the UI scaling. I always go as small as I can so I can have the most screen real estate. And yeah, the 13 isn't quite enough. I'd say. Like, I wish I could make it even smaller, but, they don't let you.
So here's my concerns. The 13 has kind of spoiled me in the fact that I honest to God don't have a charger at work anymore. I don't have a charger in my bedroom. I still do, but like I don't use it for that, right? I think my old MacBook charger that's up there has my HomePod plugged into it. But I've kind of gotten accustomed to that disconnected lifestyle. And I'm afraid that if I get a more powerful machine, I'm going to have to return to my connected lifestyle. That's my biggest concern. My other concern is I'm kind of on the fence between the 14 or the 16, because I kind of want to walk that line now where the 16 becomes my main computer, literally my main computer.
Yeah.
And my Windows PC gets relegated to almost like a gaming console.
Yeah. Can I say, like, I think for you, maybe the 16, dude, like just because of battery life alone, like I haven't looked at the comparisons, to be honest. So I can't tell you how much better the 16 is. I can just tell you I know it's
Did you see that video I linked?
I haven't got to watch it.
Let me pull up something really quickly, and then I don't know if you can if I can screen grab this and then you could pull it up. I'm not
Maybe.
sure how that even works now, but let me see where I'm at.
You'd have to just send it to me on Element, but yeah.
Yeah. So here's why I was kind of looking at the 16 Pro. Uh, where we at, dude? There we go, dude.
You tell me.
I just couldn't find Element. There you go.
It's like, where's it at then? I'm downloading it. I'm downloading it. Boop. Okay. So here's the browser window. You can't see it, but the audience can. The tech chap says this is the battery life for each one with heavy use. So what was his heavy use test methodology?
He was rendering videos in what looks like software is this? Adobe Premiere.
So he's rendering videos, right?
He's rendering videos, doing timeline footage, just basically making videos in Adobe Premiere.
Wow. So, okay, this is what I'm getting off of this. The more power you... Oh, wow, why is the 16 Max that much lower? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
they don't have the...
uses,
I wish they had the 14 Max. But they don't have it.
No, but he said that one is clearly gonna be a problem.
Yeah, I think you're right, dude. So I think you're 100% right.
This is low power.
Yeah.
Or a low light usage, which is basically just watching videos and browsing the internet.
Okay, let me pull that down too. So, let me pull that down too. I'm gonna get a little bit of a. Okay, so I just pulled that up too. What is this here? Is this like the battery percentage after X amount of time? Like, what is this?
This one is basically battery percentage after X amount of time. I forget. Or it says on the bottom. Oh, sorry, I cut it off. It's 2 hours of light use.
Okay, 2 hours of light use gets you. Looks like your MacBook Pro 16 Max down to 83%. This is for the audio listeners' benefit. So that's interesting because in this case with light use, the 14 Pro was even worse. So the 16 Max was more efficient than the 14 Pro, which is kind of the opposite. Well, actually, it's not more efficient. It just has a larger battery, I guess, at that point. Right? Like, I'm trying to think about this.
Which one? Sorry?
Well, I just thought it was interesting because the 14 Pro was under light usage lower battery than the 16 Max, but I guess that's just the battery capacity.
Yeah, that's just smaller battery.
Yeah.
So what my guess is probably in these tests, like the light usage test, is probably just using the efficiency cores. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't. Who knows?
That's
right?
well, yeah. I mean, obviously it is, right? But you just have less battery on the 14 Pro.
But then he also brings up so it's like you could see why someone like me who watched this video would maybe consider
well, you're looking for the 16 Pro, which is a battery champ, right? Like if you're trying to get
that's
M1,
why that kind of came in the mix. Yeah.
Like if you're trying to get 13-inch M1 performance, like as far as battery goes, then the 16 Pro is going to be like that sweet spot that gives you that ratio of like performance per watt that lets you just keep on going, right? So that might be where you want to go, right? Like if you're used to how long you can use the M1, like the 13-inch M1, like then yeah. But you're not going to have, you're literally going to have like half the graphical performance of the 16 Max, of the Max chip, which may or may not be good for you. Like it depends. It depends on what you're doing. Do you need those graphics, that graphics performance? Or
Probably. I mean, let's be real. Probably. I mean, he also brings up a good point in the video. So, like, if you render a video, okay, and that video takes 30 minutes on the Pro, but 15 on the Max,
right?
Then you're kind of normalizing that battery out because it's under load longer on the Pro than it is on the Max.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's perfectly valid. And it's really tough because, like, to me, I would rather get the Max because I want the flexibility even at the expense of battery, because the M1 Max is still a great performer in performance per watt. In fact, I'd argue that it's basically equivalent to the 13-inch M1 MacBook Pro. It just gives you more, right? It's literally just scaled up. It can do like what 4 M1, like not as far as GPU is concerned, right? Like obviously with CPU, it's like double performance, more or less. But with like GPU performance, it's like 4 times the performance, and maybe 3 times, 4 times. It depends on what you're doing. And I like to be able to have that performance. I know I want to be able to game on my Mac on occasion, and it runs way better. I'm doing the Shadow of the Tomb Raider here at 1920 by 1200, and I'm getting like 70 frames, and it's really nice looking. And even though Mac gaming isn't really a thing, I still want to play my games on my Mac because it's so nice.
Right.
And also the GPU rendering is going to be really nice for things that are accelerated with metal in any sense. So it could be with video rendering, it could be with whatever. So I don't know, man. I think I'll utilize the additional GPU cores.
I think where I'm at is I'll probably get the 16 max, but that battery life of the Pro is kind of lucrative.
Can you
You know what I
tell
mean?
me, like, because I went into battery settings after you talked to me about this, and I saw there's like a low power mode. Do you know what
Hmm.
that does? Do you know what that does? Like, does that
Not
throttle
officially.
me or?
It does. It does throttle you.
Well, maybe that's
Uh,
good enough. Maybe it's just like,
yeah,
maybe that's,
yeah,
hey, downgrade me to a pro while on battery, and then let me be a max when I'm not. Because
yeah.
you can
Maybe,
literally
maybe.
change like
Well,
on.
you know what? I have a best bud who could do that test for me because I don't think anyone else did.
Oh yeah, I guess I can. So I do. I'll do the test. I'm curious to see if low power mode is actually a viable thing to use. I really don't know because it may be good enough to just be on battery on low power
Hmm.
mode, or
Sure.
I'll just do some Googling actually to find out like what it actually does. Because if it just throttles you, that might be enough to, get you through just mobile use. And then, but I'd say it's not bad, but yeah, it's definitely eats up battery. Like if say I'm playing, you know how like on the M1 13-inch, I could play WoW for like 4 hours.
Yeah, that's nice. You know,
I
that's
can't
nice.
do that on this. Like, no way. Unless I did like a frame cap to like 30 frames per second, then I probably could get the same amount of time. You know what I'm saying? But who wants to do that?
Right, right.
It's no more or less efficient than the 13-inch M1. It just gives you more performance if you want it. But you're going to have to pay the price. And that's where if you really want battery and you want performance, you probably want to go with the 16.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where I'm at. I think that's where I'm at.
Take a look at like I said, when you get the 16, I want to know like what you think about it. Because
I will. I will.
I
I'll give
went
my
with this
thoughts to it.
size because I like the 13 and I didn't really want to go away from that portable kind of nice sweet spot. But I don't know,
I'm
that
also
16,
uncertain about silver or space gray.
they both look good. I'm a space gray nut, so
I am too, but like I haven't had a silver boy in a while, and I kind of like my silver iPad. Like I think it looks nice.
silver does look nice.
My silver iPad feels like almost like retro Apple, if that makes sense.
So does these new MacBooks. I think that like maybe that's the play because it already kind of has that retro shape to it. That's kind of rounded like the older MacBooks. So maybe you just roll into that and then lean into it and get the silver.
Yeah,
It kind of got that industrial look that I like. That cut aluminum, like I like it. To me, it's like it's pretty good, like industrial design
it is.
color.
It's really good industrial design.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think that so far, and I haven't finished my review of this thing, I really do like it. The display's beautiful. The sound is great. The battery life's still good if you're doing low performance stuff. Not as good as the 13-inch,
Mhm.
but I haven't had like. See, the thing is, I have charger. Like, I have a charger at work and at home, and like, there's been a couple times where I've been doing stuff on it where I gotta plug in. I ain't gonna lie to
Yeah,
you, but like, it doesn't feel bad. So
it's good.
yeah,
It's good.
I haven't felt like it's draining like the old 16, like the i9.
Plus, MagSafe is nice too. So
The MagSafe connector is like almost too strong. It's like, you know how like it's like, oh, you can trip over it. Did you see Anthony like test it and
yeah.
it almost yanked off
Hmm.
the desk?
Hmm.
Well, yeah, that's kind of how it is, dude. Like it's kind of strong. Like I get it. Like you can kind of, if you pull it from a
Yeah.
certain angle, it's like less strong because it kind of rocks off the port, but it's still pretty strong. Still, it's got to be kind of a sharp angle before it like breaks loose. It's almost too strong, but it is nice though. It's nice that it kind of frees up a port, which I like.
True.
You know,
I mean, technically, you just lost a port, right? Because you have 3 Thunderbolt ports instead of 4.
correct. But you
lost a
also have
port.
other ports if you use them, like HDMI, which is only 2.1. I'm sad. Like I
It's
like
2.0.
or
2.0, man.
2.0. I'm sad
it's
because it's not 2.1.
and an SD card, dude. I forgot that your camera takes SD cards because it's 2016, dude.
I mean, my camera does technically have SD cards.
You're never gonna use them. You're never gonna use them.
No, because I have CF Express Type A
Yeah.
cards. But yeah, I I'm definitely not using SD. But like, I'm sure like SD's still important in
It's still
2021.
relevant. It's still relevant.
Unless you're on the bleeding edge.
HDMI 2.0 is relevant, so.
Yeah, it kind of sucks for us people on the bleeding edge that like I want to plug my laptop into my 4K 120 hertz monitor TV.
My problem with Apple is they kind of toss around that Pro moniker, like
yeah, but they don't have like the best available sometimes, which is
like
BS.
the phone, right? Like there's nothing about the iPhone 13 Pro that is for professionals. It's just a better version of their normal phone. So realistically, I think Apple should have like just bring back the S line and just make a 13 and a 13S, and then the S is a better line because when I think of Pro phones, I don't think HDMI 2.0, I don't think USB 2.0, I don't think SD cards. I think V-mount batteries and CF Express.
I know. Let me ask you something, dude. So like obviously Apple's game is to replace all their Intel products, and that leaves like the iMac Pro, right? Like the iMac Pro and then their Mac Pro. So the iMac Pro obviously would probably be built with like an M1 Max. I could see that totally.
Yeah.
But like
I would maybe buy that.
It might be awesome. Like if they put the Pro Display XDR in it, think about that, dude.
Yeah.
Because they managed to fit like the Pro Display XDR technology within this MacBook, and that's nutty. The Pro Display XDR is expensive, and it doesn't have ProMotion. Like to this day, it's a beautiful display. Like I want one. It sucks that I can't use it with my Windows machines. It sucks that I can't use it. Well, you can, but with caveats. And then it also doesn't have higher refresh, which I've grown accustomed to. So I would hate to lose it. But I think that if they made like a new version of the Pro Display XDR that was cheaper and had ProMotion, that might be kind of awesome.
Yeah.
What do you think, dude?
Yeah. No, I think so too. I think we're probably going to see a cheaper Pro Display XDR because you pretty much have one in the laptop, right? So like, why would I don't know?
I agree. You have one in the laptop, and then they're probably going to put them in the Mac Pros, right? Like, or not the Mac Pros, the iMac Pros. So that would be great. I'm sure like MKBHD would like that. Marquez, like he'd definitely like that. I'm curious. He hasn't put out a MacBook Pro review yet, so I'm curious to see if he likes it. He hasn't. He said that he didn't like to edit on laptops historically because they just haven't been good enough. And I'm curious to see if this one is. He said he edited his Apple Watch review or AirPods review with
AirPods,
it.
Yeah.
So I want to see like what his hot take is on the new MacBooks and everything. So, and I know he's talked about going into an HDR workflow maybe someday, because I want to see more content creators adopt HDR workflows. And that's not going to happen until they get their hands on like easily accessible HDR displays, like this Pro Display XDR like laptop, basically. So I don't know, man. That's what I'm hoping for. I want to see more content like made in HDR.
Yeah.
Because like to me, HDR is the one display tech that is not a gimmick, and it needs to be everywhere. Like you need displays that can like actually, output high peak luminance. I don't know, dude.
Guess we'll see what the future holds for that.
Yeah. So like, what do you think about, okay, let me ask you this then. The new Mac Pro. So obviously Apple last, I don't know when they came out with it, but it was like the cheese grater Mac Pro. We love it. It's cool looking. It's cool as hell. It's expensive.
Right.
The wheels are expensive, but they're wheels. I love that thing. It looks so sexy. I want to get on eBay and get one of those chassis right now.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
I
They're
want I
gorgeous.
want one of those chassis so
Here's the
bad.
problem. Like, does that really exist?
For like Apple like for future Apple, do you think it
Yeah,
exists?
yeah. Because like, why would you need that space? You know what I mean? Like, if you're dealing with an SoC, why do you need that? Why don't you just build almost like a MacBook Pro chassis that's like 5 inches thicker and just put like a honking heatsink design on that boy and just flow through that
I don't know.
and have like an M1 Ultra.
Do you remember the trash can Mac Pro?
Yeah, dude, that thing was cool
You could
looking,
you
but
could throw a M1 chip in that bitch, and then it'd be
yeah,
probably good
no,
enough.
for real, for real. Like,
You know.
where does that Mac Pro fit in Apple's product line now?
Let me say this: the reason I want the Mac Pro to be something is I want expandable slots, PCI Express. I don't care if they want to solder on memory, even though it'd be kind of nice to have more than 64 gig option on their highest end. But so it'd be cool if I had DIMM slots, but I would like to see like actual expansion slots
You
on.
can't though. You can't though.
Well, not with that,
Because
not with how they have it. I don't know if there's a way for them to
it
do
would
it.
be infinitely slower.
Is that the case?
That's my understanding of how SoC architecture works, right? Like that's why
Everything's
it's
like
basically soldered on
self-contained.
die, right?
Yeah.
It's basically soldered on die like HBM is. So part of the reason why HBM has so much bandwidth is because it's literally soldered on die.
Right.
Then if you run through DIMM slots, then you need an IMC, a separate IMC, and then that will create overhead, my understanding of it. And then it just won't be as fast. Like standard RAM just isn't as fast.
Right.
Like look at how fast RAM is on your graphics card. There's a reason for that. It's soldered on board and it's fast. It's right there. It doesn't go through a DIMM slot. It doesn't go through any sort of bus. It doesn't go through, a separate IMC. It's just accessible, almost like DMA. I don't know. Like that's my understanding of it. And I'm kind of okay with unified memory because shockingly, Apple didn't charge an arm and a leg for 64 gigs.
Right.
So I don't really have a problem with that. Now, if they were charging Mac Pro prices for RAM, I would have a problem with that, where they're like plus $4,800 for 64 gigs or whatever nonsense it was.
Yeah.
That would be an issue. But the price of the M1s is really compelling.
Right.
And I'm almost okay with that because I think they gave us sizable memory options. If it was just what the base M1 had of like 8 and 16, then it would be like, this is going to not bode well.
Yeah.
But when you can go up to 64 gigs for an extra $800, I don't think I could buy fast memory, which is slow in Mac terms, 64 gigs for $800.
Right.
For of like DDR4.
So I mean, do you think that they could make like a faster chip than like even the M1 Max for that product, or do you think they would just stick with like the M1 Max as their top?
I don't
chip?
think we're going to see. All right, so
Like
this
an
is
M1
pure
architecture
speculation.
chip.
This is pure speculation. What I think we're going to see is updated iMac Pro with M1 Max in it coming up next. I don't think we'll see a new Mac Pro until M2.
M2.
I mean, I'm going to say that MacBook Air will have M2, MacBook Pro will have M2 Pro in multiple configurations, and then M2 Max will be desktop boy.
Okay, interesting. Do you think if the M2 Max would end up on the laptops in any way?
Probably not.
Okay. So yeah, because I was like, where do you go from
like
there?
A
because
full
like
fat 300, 350, maybe even 400 watt boy. Like I'm talking like
because I was
where
thinking
like
about
half
that, right?
the motherboard is the SoC.
Yeah, because right now with their naming convention, like you have the M1, the M1 Pro, and the M1 Max. But like if they went and made an even better chip, like what would they have to name it? Like I couldn't think of anything that made sense.
Or I'm wrong, and the other option is they just make the M2 a desktop line.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. Or they call it like D1.
Right.
M for mobile.
Oh yeah, D1, like M mobile or something. D1 being like their,
or like W.
Yeah.
Because like you have the W1 for wireless, so that's out.
Yeah.
So it'd have to be like D1 or something like
You
that.
could do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that'd be
then keep
interesting.
the and then have like a D1 Pro and a D1
I
Max.
think the desktop variant needs more cores and threads. Like,
Well, obviously, right? Because you no longer have to sit inside that power window. And
yeah,
if you're already a desktop user or a Mac Pro user, you're already looking at drawing 700 watts under load. You know
right.
what I mean? So that gives them tons of overhead,
Yeah,
like tons of room to play with from a power standpoint. Where I think they're going to run into constraints is I don't know, like how far they can take that architecture.
yeah.
Like, is it literally just Control C, Control V cores, or
I don't think it's
what do they
quite
do?
that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. And like, I don't know. I think that my dream for the Mac Pro would be if they, I know this is not possible because you already kind of said that that's the case. And I tend to agree. But if it was, I think it would be cool if it was much in the way as it is now, where you have expansion slots, external GPU support. I think that if they made a chip that was basically this, like a scaled up M1 Max, with the exception of they ditch the GPU cores and just like go all ham on CPU cores, and then let the external GPU handle the graphics, and they could still have their hardware acceleration from ProRes and
here's the
H.264
problem
and
with
stuff
that.
on board.
Here's the problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
If you ramped up a M1 Max, you have 64 cores instead of 32. I think you're already looking at like 3080 performance.
Okay, yeah. You mean with
like,
the
think of how close
so
the
you're saying like
32
if they
is?
ramped up the GPU cores even
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, if they just Control C, Control
Yeah, but
V
that
those
die
boys
is
to
gonna
like
be
64.
huge.
Well, that's kind of what I said before, right? Like, how funny would it be to like have a Mac Pro and half the motherboard is the chip?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The chip is basically like
But like that's the idea,
Threadripper
right? So
fucking
like,
chunk.
my idea, my vision for this is like take a 60-inch MacBook and stand it up on its side, right?
Yeah.
Like pretend this is the MacBook, like stand
Okay.
it up like this,
Yeah.
and then come out like 5 inches,
Yeah.
and that's your new Mac Pro, and it's literally
That's how big it is.
D1 processor, and the entire 5 inches is just a flow through heatsink that takes from the cheese grater Mac design, where it's a passive heatsink with chassis fans on the front and chassis fans on the back that just push air through that front.
Right.
So you now have the same cheese grater design that people like, but it's now in basically just a thick boy MacBook Pro chassis.
Yeah.
And it's literally just that. Like the bottom would just be like a power supply.
Yeah.
Like Apple's nice slim boy power supply. Like I'm kind of
Yeah.
envisioning like the kind used in rack mount servers.
Right.
On the bottom, and then that just plugs into the main board,
Yeah.
and then literally the entire thing is basically a giant heatsink for the SSD.
Yo, they
I
need to
think
they need to keep the cheese grater front, dude.
they will.
They
will.
need to.
I
Looks
think
so good.
I would probably bet money on that being a reality.
Oh man, that'd be fantastic.
Because there's no other reason to keep a thick boy chassis and use that same chassis again.
Yeah.
If you're just having an SoC,
What
there's
would
no reason for it.
can you think of any scenario where like somebody would want more than that? You'd have to be doing some weird lab shit, I think. Weird stuff.
Okay, so like here's where things get weird.
Yeah.
Right. How do you fit like a red afterburner in there?
You don't.
Or like
But like
right,
that's what
right.
I think it would be neat. You know what would be great is if they supported like you know how like eGPUs have like with Thunderbolt 4 have like, you know, PCI slot in there. Like that'd be cool if you could have external add-in cards like that over Thunderbolt 4. But like I don't know. What do I know? I think that'd be kind of cool. Like if you could have accelerator cards that were enabled through Thunderbolt 4 or something, you know, like
Yeah, but there had to be external enclosures, and like Apple tried that with Blackmagic. Like they had those two Blackmagic enclosures, and they did not sell well. Like they
Yeah.
kind of went on the store for like 6 months. I think the last one was before they pulled it.
damn. Okay, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, like they sold specific Blackmagic ones, and they looked nice, but people just didn't buy them.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a niche
So-
product, I guess. But
So
yeah.
I don't really see that being a reality. What I see being a reality is, like I said, like we're talking a chunk boy SoC. That's like the Apple D1 or whatever you want to call it. You know,
Yeah.
who knows?
It'll be. I'm just really curious because that's like the last two products they have to M1ify with their Apple Silicon, and I want to see it happen. I'm really curious. I'm excited. I want to see if the new iMac has Pro Display XDR technology. I want to see if it has the
It will.
Max chip.
It for sure will. Like I said, it's kind of like you can almost kind of predict Apple's movements. You know what I mean? Like because you come down to it with like ProMotion, right? Like it's their only Pro moniker device that's mobile and didn't have ProMotion. So you kind of knew it was coming sooner or later. That being said, I don't know, man. Like I would love to use a Mac as my main computer. And that's why I'm looking so hard at this MacBook Pro, because I want to relegate my Windows-based PC just to being a game console. Because, like, just the other day, like, I told you I have that issue with FTPM. You know, it's like... Windows is just not a good experience for me. And it's not a good experience for me because I don't know how to use it. It's not a good experience for me because I've tried something better. And I feel like once you get in that mindset of like actually sitting down, using Mac OS or using some versions of Linux, you realize that Windows is kind of crap.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like as a power user, like I still like Mac better. You know what I mean? Like you can do a lot on Mac OS. Like there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do. There's third-party tools that you could use. There's like all these capabilities on the machine. And you can get like everything you need on there. Like all the big players are making Mac versions of everything that there is to make. So other than games, like that's the one thing. Like, so if I agree, like in my case, now that this thing performs so well with a Max chip, I have even less reason to sit at my desktop. And I'd rather be on my couch, or like even if I did want to be on the desktop, I'd plug into my HDMI on this, and then like you have a keyboard and mouse and be like hooked up to my Mac at my desk, and then only use PC for gaming and also to stream my games to my Mac. You know, so
my aperture light died.
No, you still look good. Don't worry, dude. You still look good, dude. You look good. Now you look dramatic. You know,
got that nice.
You got that hat shadow, dude. It's like,
dude.
It's kind of like, I don't know. It looks good.
Gotta drop it on my wireless charger.
Yep. I feel you. You got it.
What a good product.
That little aperture boy? I got it right here.
Love
this
it.
Guy. Yeah, you can't see it in the camera.
Dude, but, it was my key light today, and it made a big difference, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of nice like to bust out whenever you kind of need a little bit of a fill, you know, but it's probably not the best key light, but it works.
All right, for someone who doesn't have a key light, and I'm using an improper key light as a key light, it kind of did its job, you know?
Yeah, I've tried to use it as kind of like a fill light, and I've tried to use it plugged in, but if you do, it cuts the brightness. So you have to, it cuts the brightness. Like your max brightness is low if it's charging on USB-C at the same time, but it will run indefinitely at that lower brightness.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the only negative, I guess, with this one is it's like at full bore, it's gonna die, you know?
Yeah.
But like if you're doing something real quick, it's kind of great. But we've been on this podcast for 1 hour and 43 minutes, according to my thing. And I've kind of wrapped it up, dude. Like I think,
all right, dude.
You know, it's really been, you know, my summary on the MacBook is it's great. I'm going to try to use it as my main machine, and I'm going to try and game on it if I can. But yeah, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fantastic. And if you can afford it, it's probably, you're going to love it if you buy it, regardless. It might not be for everybody, but if you do get it, because it's for you, you're going to love it. All right.
Yeah, dude. I'm hyped, so.
We're going to wrap it up. Anyway, that's been Technosthetic. Thanks for listening in on the podcast. Thanks for watching us on YouTube, because we look pretty crispy on there. And yeah, leave a comment down below. Do you... what do you think about the new Intel boys? What do you think about Blizzard? What do you think about the M1 Max? Let us know. And yeah, it's been a podcast. See you guys in the next one.
It has been. Later, boys.
Later.